It's Confessions of a Doctorholic with Hafsa Suleiman, and I'm going to complain about how ridiculous some people are. Just the other day, someone commented on my age in medical school, and I'm only 25, and I personally think it's ridiculous. So on air today, I've got one of the most brilliant minds in medical school, and also a mature age student, just to keep the picture clear. Zara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay, so am I allowed to ask your age, or is it inappropriate?
No, you can ask me. I'm 49.
You look younger. Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll take that. It's the young people I surround myself with.
That sounds good. All right. Why did you decide at the age of, I'm assuming 47, right? That's when you started first year?
I started when I was 47, yeah. But it started, I wanted to be a doctor from when I was very little, tiny. My dad has type 1 diabetes, so I'd always tell him that I was going to cure him when I was little. But life went a different way, and I'm glad it did. I've come a long way around, but I think I've come a good way around. 25 is, I think, in a lot of ways, the limit to when you should be starting medicine. 25, I was in the middle of my PhD. Yeah, I think that's probably a good time to get started. I think people going in when they're 18 or 19, which is, when they start in England anyway, if they do the 5-6 year courses, they've got no experience. They think, as I've had that at the school, somebody thought 60 was a good age to get to. I mean, that's going to influence how you view people, how you treat people. And they've got such limited life experience.
I agree.
They come in with youth and the ability to learn very well, and excitement and passion. So that's great. So there are lots of positive things, but I don't think it's a bad thing to come in with all this outside experience. Yeah. The other thing too, coming in a bit older, like I have experienced friends and family having illnesses, like my friend that has alpha-1 antitrypsin disease. I helped nurse her after she had a double lung transplant. I saw her almost die when an oxygen tank malfunctioned. I have a friend with Friedreich's ataxia. I have friends that have gone through breast cancer. I lost a friend to breast cancer, and my dad's type 1 diabetic. So I've got all this personal experience seeing that from the patient point of view, what they go through, that we have no idea when we read BMJ best practice. It really gives no idea of that. Yeah. So yeah, that also I think is super, super valuable. But anyway, I'll go back to what I'm saying, what you asked me.
What did you do before medical school?
Well, I've always been in science. So my undergrad was in molecular biology. And then one of the last courses I did at Manchester was about immunoparasitology. And I totally fell in love with that. So I did a PhD in infection, the immunology of infectious disease of a parasite. And then I went to San Diego and did a postdoc in virology.
That's amazing.
It was a lot of fun. I moved to America for 2 years. I stayed 20 years. So after I did my postdoc, I went to work for a startup biotech, and we were working on autoimmune disease and allergy. And then I went from the tiniest little startup where, there was a group that could fit round the table, to the biggest biotech in the world, Amgen. And I worked in discovery research there, and then moved over to medical communication. So I was working on a drug that was out in the market for nephrology, and I worked with key opinion leaders and also educating patients, and the publication plan for the drug.
That's incredible. Like, I literally just paused when you said parasitology. I was like, okay, I'm glad I pronounced that correctly right now as well. I was just like, wow, this is fabulous. So why at 47? Like, why didn't you stop somewhere in the middle and do it earlier?
Well, I fell in love with research, absolutely. And, I told my dad I'd cure him, and actually going into science and research is a better way of doing that. Yeah. I actually didn't ever work on diabetes, but did work on developing drugs, discovering drugs and developing them. But every, I would say 5 years or so, I'd come back, I should have done medicine. But I always managed to talk myself out of it. And then I got to the point in my life where I kept telling myself I was too old. And then I got to the point where I thought, I'm really unhappy. And I worked with a career coach, and I did some crazy things. I even talked to a Vedic astrologer who told me my life was all about healing. And some of my closest friends were like, they talked me down and said, look, it's obvious what you should be doing. And the coach helped me with that as well. And so I thought I'd just give it a try. So I finally got to where I, started thinking about when I was about 5.
Oh, wow. And was it difficult to get into medical school when you were older?
Well, I was in America to start with, and I have a British education, and so it's a very different style of education. So quite quickly it became apparent that getting into an American medical school was going to be difficult. But I really actually wanted a British degree and wanted to go and work for the NHS. I had trouble in Britain with some of the schools because a lot of them think very much in the box. They didn't take any of my experience after university into account. So it was almost as if I was going in from zero. So they were still asking me about my grades at A level when I'd worked with Nobel Prize winners and, worked in industry and in basic research for years. Yeah. So that was a big thing, I think, that was a struggle, just people not thinking outside the box. The school that I've ended up at, they were a bit more, one person that I dealt with thought outside the box, and he looked at me as a whole and could see that I could benefit the school and they could benefit me. So yes, I'm glad to that one guy at the school that gave me that opportunity.
That's amazing. And I feel like more people should be like that, because that means more amazing minds can end up in medicine.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I think people shouldn't be viewed as coming in at zero, because I've come in with a huge amount of life experience before anything else. I've lived in different countries, I've worked with different personalities, I've learned about different belief systems when it comes to medicine. I work with artists, I've worked with scientists, and also my training as a scientist has taught me many of the skills that I use in medicine every day.
You mentioned that you wanted to work in the British system, NHS. Why was that?
I think that's what I've grown up with, and I've seen how incredibly it's looked after my family and me and, most of Britain. I think it's creaking now. There are a lot of changes that need to come. And again, at this time, I think hopefully we'll get the minds and the money to make it better. I would struggle, I think, in the American system right now because of the problems with insurance and having or not having insurance, and that affecting how people can get treated. Maybe not in the ER room, but for things like dermatology or oncology, I would find that very difficult. But I'm talking from fairly limited experience, just being a patient, not being a medical worker. So I think my next 2 years in America, I will have more experience. And never say never. I said I was going to America before for 2 years, and I stayed 20 years and loved it. So I'm not going to close any options off.
So looking at medicine, you've got books and you're reading something that's there, and you have to have like a pretty strict schedule, I'd say, to study all the time and that kind of thing. So did you feel like the shift from like research and not being in school to going into school, was that difficult?
I think the biggest problem is the volume of information we have to learn. And what I loved about research and what I love about learning is being able to get really into the nitty gritty, go off on tangents in research. I mean, that's what you have to do in research to kind of find new findings. Whereas here, it was a lot of didactic learning, a lot of just sucking up facts and not even particularly having the time to understand the underlying science or the underlying medicine, just be able to spew them back. And I found that difficult. I used to work through the night when I was doing my PhD, and I loved it. I was passionate about it. I'm a little bit more cynical about working those kind of hours now, so I have to struggle with that because you do have to put the hours in. I found if I can skew it so that I can make it joyful, the way of learning, I do love it. But it's difficult when there's just such a huge amount of information we have to cover.
What about being in medical school with students that are like younger than you? I feel like there were a couple that were about the same age, but like there's most of the students, they're younger. How do you feel about that? Was it difficult? What were the challenges you faced?
Maybe I was a bit naive going in because I've never really had a good sense of my age. Like, I haven't had a traditional life, I guess. I didn't get married, didn't have kids, and that kind of thing. I just wasn't interested really. So I've always hung around a wide range of people. I've got friends that are in their 70s, I've got friends in their 20s, so I've never actually thought of myself as of a different age, as long as I get on with people. When I went to the school and it was almost all younger people, then it became quite apparent that even though I didn't feel I looked or felt any different, I was being perceived as a bit as different. I guess I could be the age of some of the people's mums and dads. I guess that's terrifying. But yeah, so that was a bit odd, reacting to how some people reacted to me. A lot of the students, you know, were fine. Like they took me on face value or started chatting to me, and things are fine. Some don't know what to do with me. I can see that they're awkward, but you know, I think one of the main difficulties was like the little social groups that came up, and that's going out and learning together. And so I've had a little bit of difficulty forming those kind of groups to bounce ideas off outside of the lectures, but most of the time it's fine. I've got to not let that become self-limiting to myself, because I feel fine about it all. That's the best way to take it.
And did you feel like lecturers treated you differently?
The lecturers, again, it was a bit of a mix. So some are fine. A lot of the tutors told me, you know, how impressed they were, and it was inspirational, and they wish they could have done something like that, and that was nice too. And some lecturers, again, they look at me. I definitely get this feeling that some of them look at me and see me as a zero, and that's frustrating. Like they're not interested in finding out what I did before. And I honestly thought I could, you know, contribute a bit more, and like, because I was coming in with a different skill set, but that's not been the case. But again, a lot of lecturers have been fantastic with me, like particularly when we went out on our placements, really supportive people.
And what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced in medical school?
Biggest challenge is, I think, what I said before, that I don't have as much fun learning as I thought I would, because I'm not able to go into any depth in anything. A little bit more now as we're going through the years and we're spiraling back to the same subjects, we can go off and do research. It's just the volume of information. There are cartoons, aren't there, that describe medical school as trying to drink from a fire hose, because so much is coming at you and you miss a lot of it. And also, I think the way the medical exam system is set up, you're always going to feel bad about yourself because you can't possibly know everything. And when you've come from a background where you try to know everything, become an expert, then that's difficult. So you have to become comfortable with knowing that you don't know everything, but maybe other people don't know everything either.
That's a good way of putting it. So now, in terms of the future and stuff, what do you reckon you're gonna specialize in? Have you thought about that?
I'm asked that a lot as well. So my background's infectious disease, and if there was a time to go into infectious disease medicine, this is it. So I've got a head start on that. I love a parasite, I love a virus. So that's one option, but really not limiting myself to that. Great. I mean, my background is also immunology, but what I've been interested by, I'm kind of interested in pediatrics, even though I've never wanted kids of my own. I think they're really cute and I love working with them.
They are cute.
Yeah, they are, but I haven't seen a lot of very sick children, so that might change my opinion. But I think the kids are fascinating and sweet. But then the other end of the spectrum, because I've been around my parents a lot, is geriatrics, because there's a lot missing in geriatrics. I think the focus needs to shift to it, especially the way the population is aging, and I don't think it's not brilliant treatment for a lot of older people, I think. So that's another area. But honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do for my PhD until the last term of my undergrad, and I just knew after taking a lecture course. So I'm just waiting.
Amazing. Okay, and if we want to follow you, where can we do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram, but I'm not very good. Facebook. Oh my God, that's showing my age. Facebook, isn't it? I need to get on TikTok. Or you could email. It's old school, I'm afraid. It's Felt Evolution, which is from my art part of my life at yahoo.com.
Amazing. All right, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.